Welcome to the All Things Property podcast with me, Simon Bacon.
And me, Ian Sadler.
So following on from our latest podcast around inspections and the purpose of those inspections, today we're going to talk about reporting repairs, what tenants should do and how landlords should respond. Welcome to the All Things Property podcast with me, Simon Bacon of Preventative Properties. Every week, Ian Sadler and I will delve into all things property. We'll guide you through with friendly, no-nonsense advice. I suppose the issue is most repair issues don't become big problems overnight. They become big problems because they weren't reported or dealt with properly. And I know we talked probably at length last time around, the purpose of inspections being to identify and check that maintenance issues have been dealt with. But let's bring that back one then, Ian. How should tenants report maintenance issues?
Well, to begin with, they report them as soon as they notice them, no matter what they are. I think the system I use and probably the system you use, the tenants have something called a property file where they can report maintenance issues and track their tenancy and so on online. And in this computer savvy age for tenants, they're happy with that and they use it to report a maintenance issue online, sends an email to me, I then appoint a contractor, so it's a smooth and speedy response.
When you get repairs requests, what are you looking for? What helps you when a tenant reports a repair?
A detailed explanation of exactly what the problem is.
Yeah, there's a massive difference, isn't there, between I've got a leak under my kitchen sink to I've got a leak. Where's it coming from? How long has it been there? Is it a big one? Is it a small one? Is there much water damage? Do you get your tenants to send in photos or not?
Yeah, they have to send you to attach photos, yeah.
Okay, all right. So what would then count as an emergency repair as against just a routine repair?
No heating or hot water. It's the biggest one, isn't it?
Yeah. Anything else?
Yep, leak from the bath, leak through the kitchen ceiling. How many times have we had that? It's so important that leaks particularly. That you're naturally going to report an issue of no heating, no hot water straight away. Leaks or patches on the ceiling. Oh, that's a damp patch. So it doesn't look too much. That sort of thing can cause real problems. So anything involving water, a detailed description and report it as quickly as possible. It's really important.
Have you ever had a situation where a tenant has said to you, I've had that damp patch on my wall for, a couple of months now, but I haven't really done anything about it, haven't bothered to, And what do you say?
Next time, please. It's in your interest and mine and the landlord to get it online as soon as possible.
Yeah. It is very much a case of, early reporting, A, helps the tenant and B, helps us, and the more detail they give, the more we're able to understand what we need to do, isn't it?
Yeah, and the better response and the quicker response you give them, the easier it is to break down those preconceptions of agents and landlords not wanting to do repairs and maintenance.
So what do you think are reasonable response times? What would you generally use?
And you've got to address the issue immediately. For me, you run your own business, I run my own business. If I get an email on Saturday night at 8 o'clock, and depending on the severity of the problem, then I will instruct the contractor same day, same time. I'm not going to wait till Monday 9 o'clock. What's the point where you could be creating a bigger problem for yourself? So, I think in both our businesses, I think it's important not to be available 24 hours a day, although that has been requested before, but to react quickly.
When a tenant reports a repair, do you give them any kind of expectation around timescales, or how
I've got some really good guys, so it's a lot easier for me, I think, because most of the tenants know my maintenance guy on first name terms with all of them. So they know who to expect to call, they know the process, so it disarms any potential confrontations pretty straight away.
So what advice would you give landlords then So their letting agent phones up and says, or their tenant phones up and says, I've got this problem. How would you encourage a landlord to deal with that? What would you say to them?
Okay. Firstly, if it's a non-urgent problem, such as settlement crack in a new property where the stairs are falling away from the wall and the crack is going to widen for probably 2 or 3 years, note it, photograph it, as I'm now going to do, and report it so the landlord's aware of it. If it's a leak, then it has to be done immediately. I think it's rare that you can't get, well, in my case, a contractor out there within 24 hours to at least to assess and mitigate the problem.
So let's talk about, I don't know, I'm only just want to just raise a few issues, I guess. So let's say a tenant reports, and what I'm doing is I'm trying to frame it in terms of setting expectations. So if a tenant reports a repair, the first thing we have to do is to manage their expectations, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So if a tenant, I don't know, a tenant says to you on Saturday afternoon, my oven has stopped working, how would you manage their expectations? What do you think the tenant's expectations might be?
Well, their initial expectations and their ultimate expectations are two different things, aren't they?
Okay.
I think if
you're
okay, I've had situations where the oven element has failed and they couldn't cook their Saturday lunch and Sunday dinner. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
So you have to explain politely that I'll send it to the domestic appliance guy. He'll be in touch, but the earliest I can get him there is Monday. It's a weekend. They're not at work. That's just how it happens. Most of them are okay with that, and most people adapt, don't they? They'll go to their parents for lunch or go out for dinner rather than eating. That's life, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Your oven element goes. You don't get somebody around within 4 hours to fix it, so you can have your dinner at 7 o'clock. The likelihood is, if it was your house and you wanted to get some, you wouldn't be able to do, would you?
No.
But why do I think we can? We're not magicians.
No, and that, for me, that is about, that's a conversation I often have with people when I'm trying to manage their expectations, is a tenant is no different to anybody else. You almost need to take the tenant aspect out of it. If your oven fails, if my oven fails, then yeah, I'm annoyed about it.
You'd have a takeaway though, wouldn't you?
No, Ian, I wouldn't have a takeaway.
You would.
That'd be unhealthy. I would have my air fryer.
Ah, even worse.
Okay. And I think that's the advantage nowadays, is that there are some things that in the past would have been a big issue, whereas, you know, when we do inspections, I would say, you know, go on, give me a number. How many people in your properties have air fryers, do you reckon?
30% maybe.
Only 30%?
Oh, my
Wow.
demographic of my tenant is probably older than yours.
Okay, do you just fill your properties with old people
Old
like
people,
you?
generally. I like to look after the aged.
Okay.
Being one myself, it's...
That's called sheltered housing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Oh.
just thought I'd mention it. But anyway, so you don't have that many that have air fryers?
No?
No, okay. Whereas I would say probably 70% of mine probably have air fryers, which
Do you
means...
think air fryers should be allowed in properties under the Renters' Rights Act?
Yes, why?
I was just wondering if they're considered to be health hazards.
No? Why would they be? They're just an electrical appliance.
It's just another big lump on your kitchen work surface, isn't it?
But I actually
Just a
find
thought.
that, to a certain extent, talk about air fryers, you know, I feel like, you know, we're finding people are using air fryers more than ovens. So the ovens stay clean and the air fryers...
That's the result, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so going back, sorry, we digress.
We did.
Response times. So we've talked about an oven. What if, I don't know, someone's boiler goes down? Because that's always a challenge, isn't it?
It is. It depends. If it's a maintenance issue that can be solved, like a blocked condensate pipe or a diverter valve that needs changing, they're simple things to do. They can be done on one visit. If it's a boiler that's past its sell-by date, then realistically, you're not going to be able... if you've got to go through the process of contacting the landlord, getting their permission, getting quotes, it can take days and days, can't it?
Yeah.
It's
So
not.
how would you manage that tenant's expectations on?
Well, you start managing it by communicating with them and just making sure you're on top of it and letting them know what the situation is. I think if half the battle is when you address it immediately, and tenants are sometimes surprised to get a call at 7 o'clock on Saturday night. If I feel it's worth making a call, then you've laid the foundation there for a good relationship and lessening somebody's expectations or insistence on timescales.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, I think one of the things that will come out of this episode in bucket loads will be communication.
Yeah. Again,
it is, isn't it? If you keep the tenant updated and you keep the landlord updated and you have that dialogue, then it does go a long way to reassuring. And that's where a tenant is no different to anybody else, you or me. I'm sure that if you have a problem and someone is communicating regularly with you, then you feel reassured that you're important to that person and that someone's doing something about it.
Yeah, I think if it's your house or my house and we have a problem, we know what the expectations of repair is, don't we? It's going to be 2 days, 3 days, a week for a boiler, maybe even longer. I think that part of the problem is that a tenant feels frustrated that they are not in control of the situation. So they can't dictate how quickly or how slowly it happens. They're in somebody else's hands.
Yes, but I also think there is also something that landlords need to be aware of, which is, if you own your own house, then if you haven't got your boiler goes down, you can make a decision when and if you are going to repair that and how you're going to repair that. You may not have the money to replace the boiler now, or you may take out finance on it or whatever. Landlords don't have the ability to say, oh, I can't afford to get that boiler replaced. That's one of the responsibilities of being a landlord, is to make sure that if something fails, you have to replace it. You have to get it back up and running again. So it's managing everybody's expectations. You can be really annoyed about it, but as a landlord, you don't have the ability, I guess, to think, oh, I can't really afford to do that. It's the boiler's gone down. I can't afford to do that, or I'm away on a holiday. It will just have to wait. These things have to be dealt with. Access arrangements for contractors. I always find this a fascinating subject.
Yeah. I want it done now, or you can come in an hour's time. Well, I can't do that, I'm not there.
Yes, yeah. Or, they can come round on Monday afternoon between 12 and 5. Well, that's not convenient because I'm working. You want me to take a day off or half a day off. That's not reasonable.
It is, though, isn't it?
Well, yes. How would you deal with it?
Exactly.
I'm assuming you don't rent your property.
Yeah.
But if you have something go wrong in your property and you need a contractor, you have to make arrangements. You either arrange for a friend or a relative to be there, or you can't just say, oh yeah, I'll leave the key under the key pot unless you know the contractor really, really well. Tenants do have, one of the things that I suppose tenants have the advantage over homeowners is that they can say, oh no, I'm happy for the contractor to come in using your set of office keys. That's often a way around it. But yeah, I do find sometimes that tenants get really upset with having to take time off work for a contractor to come and fix something. But that's life, isn't it?
It is.
What else can you do to manage tenants' expectations?
Quick response times. Not necessarily solving the problem on the first phone call, but communicating, acknowledging you've had the request and you've instructed the contractor. I think most people would accept that as reasonable behaviour, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would have said so.
And if anybody shouts and complains about that, I would say they're being unreasonable.
Yeah. I think, again, the important thing is to keep records. The more records you have of, action you've taken, communication with the tenant, I've let the contractor know. The contractor will be in touch with you, and I do find sometimes it's much easier to give the contractor the tenant's phone number rather than being the conduit, being the
No, I
middle
do that.
person.
That's done as a matter of course.
Because I find that that obviously smooths the way sometimes, and rather than us having to try and negotiate a time when
those
someone
days
can
are
come
gone.
in. Yeah, absolutely. What are tenants' responsibilities in terms of repairs? Do you ever get the situation where, I don't know, a tenant thinks it's someone else's responsibility to do something in a property? Light bulbs, for example.
I think it's not done through over expecting, if that's the wrong phrase, but I don't think they do that because they think it should be done straight away, or it's somebody else's. Every part of the house is the landlord's responsibility. It's if it's reported as a maintenance issue, the oven bulb has gone. I had one last week, and I just sent a gentle explanation back saying all light bulbs in the property, including fridge, freezer, and oven, are responsibility of the tenant. They said, "Oh, okay, wasn't sure," and they do it. So it's information really.
Yeah, which is important. Again, comes back to, I think, was it the last podcast or the one before that about tenancy agreements, where we were saying it's really important to read and understand what your roles and responsibilities
people
are.
Don't.
No, I know they don't, but it's like another one is wasps' nests, bees' nests.
Yeah.
What do you do with those?
I think wasps or bees, I tend to actually get a pest control person there.
Would you expect your landlord to do that then?
Yeah.
Would you?
Yeah, I would.
Okay. Whereas a tenancy agreement, that's a tenant's responsibility.
Wasps and pests.
Yeah.
Ants, I draw the line at ants.
Okay.
I wouldn't have anybody
If there
else
was a
do that.
wasp's nest, it's actually a tenant's responsibility certainly under our tenancy agreements, because it's, how can a landlord be responsible for that? You're almost saying, if it was something getting in because of a hole in an external wall, which you sometimes get, then that becomes a landlord's responsibility, because the landlord has, by not looking after the property or not dealing with potentially an issue that was identified, that becomes a landlord's responsibility. But something like a wasp nest, if they put a nest up, build a nest at the side of the house, it is actually the tenant's responsibility.
So any pest, squirrels in the loft?
Potentially. I think there are probably some boundaries, but yeah, some of the basic ones, we often get it. I've got a wasp's nest. Well,
so our wasp boundaries are so different then.
Yeah, you need to call someone to arrange to get it sorted. Yeah, it's not the landlord's responsibility.
And yet I've done any pest control people I've been asked to do a job at a property. I've never had, when it's been listed on a landlord's statement with a copy of the invoice, it's never been questioned.
They might do now. Thanks for that. Okay, so let's talk about preventative maintenance and reactive maintenance. For those that don't know, what would you say the difference is?
Addressing a problem when you first notice it is obviously way better than waiting and doing nothing and creating a big problem.
Which goes back to what we talked about, the inspections.
Photographs.
If you identify, if a tenant identifies something early, this is a classic for me, is that I know it's not the time of the year for this, but you're fast approaching Christmas, and tenant phones you up to say, my boiler's not working. Yeah, okay, let's see if we can get it sorted. It's been like that for months, where it keeps going off, or it keeps failing, or it keeps doing this, and you think, why didn't you report it when it first started happening? If you report it early, that's preventative maintenance. You get someone out, you have looked at it, you identify what the problem is, you have time to fix it. Reactive repairs often are much more expensive to do, because you're having to send someone out at a time that's critical, rather than being able to plan to do that. And I suppose the same sort of thing comes with things like, external redecoration, doesn't it? You know, if you start to look at a property and, I don't know, the wooden windows or the fascias need to be redecorated, or they're starting to peel slightly, much easier to start to plan for that rather than have to do it when, you know, things have got beyond, you've got a hole in the window frame or something. So, you know, not only does it enhance the property, but it can save time and money by, you know, doing preventative maintenance rather than reactive maintenance. So I guess to sum the maintenance section up, or reporting repairs section up, good communication fixes most repair issues, doesn't it? Delays and misunderstanding are what causes disputes, and poor communication is what really causes frustration and annoyance.
Talk to us.
Absolutely. So if you do have any repairs and maintenance issues or want to talk to us about preventative maintenance, then do give us a call and have a chat.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the All Things Property podcast. If you found this episode useful, don't forget to subscribe, like and share. These things really help us reach the people who need to hear this advice. See you next week.